Well, welcome back to Morning Express. It is now time for The Way It Is. And taking center stage in this conversation this morning is the ongoing political party primaries that signal the beginning of the electoral process here in the country. But the past few weeks, or the past 1 week rather, has noted rather shambolic primaries by the Orange Democratic Movement in what many term as a breach of democracy in the country. And this is why we're asking you on our question of the day, do you believe the remaining round of party primaries will be less acrimonious? Do you believe that the remaining round of party primaries will be less acrimonious? Morning Express KTN is the hashtag to reach us on. We'll be sampling your views and comments in the course of this live newscast. Mike, though, has a panel that he will introduce before we begin the conversation.
All right, and thank you for joining us. And remember, you're welcome to call to participate via Twitter as we continue with the subject for today. So joining me in studio, we have Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer, and we also have Honorable Ken Okoth, who is a member of parliament for Kibra. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Let me also mention that we had also invited Brenda Wakaba, but she will not make it, so that sometimes we get comments that, you know, the panel is a manel, just full of testosterone. But there you go, we did try. But let's get to the subjects and matters at hand. And let me start with you, Honorable Ken Okoth, on your comments, first of all, on the election primaries that have begun in ODM, which have been described as shambolic, they've been described as disorganized, they've been described as dishonest.
I don't know who has described them that way, because I can tell you for sure that our political parties have a very important task. And parties like Jubilee and ODM, the only two that really have a nationwide reach, are going to have a tough time. I think it's romanticizing thinking that there's going to be any bliss even in the Jubilee nominations, because it's a very hotly contested, where when I ask who has described them totally in those negative terms that you're doing, is because I also know that out of the counties where it has been done, from the MCA seats, you're not hearing much quarrels. From most of the MP seats, you've had even 3 people have been taken out that are currently serving in this current parliament that have lost the nominations. So it's really when you get 1 or 2 gubernatorial spaces that it looks very critical, and rerun has been arranged. I must say we need to give ODM credit, because the lessons from 2013, I think we have tried to learn them. One of them is that trying to run the primary on one day is very difficult. So trying to use the limited resources and doing it resourcefully, step by step, region by region, is a much helpful approach. And I think even with the mistakes and shortcomings we've seen at the start of this, you'll see better. Tomorrow we have another round of 3 counties, and you will see that things are much better. So how in terms of logistics, arrival of materials on time, completion of the elections on time. So I think things will get better.
So how would you describe them yourself?
I think it's just to be expected. The first set of elections, very highly contested. I think if you were to ask me to give as a grade as a teacher, I would give ODM B+ or A-. I wouldn't give it an A or A+ yet on this. But I'd say A or A-, because yes, the delays you've had and things like that. The reason why we were splitting it is to improve the logistics. I also want to say that some things that the party is being blamed for, it is individuals that should be blamed for, individual aspirants, and the party should hold them accountable. And when the party starts to hold people accountable for violence and things like that, you should give the party credit. So I think there's spaces in which it's very easy to demonize ODM. It is quick, but I would say ODM has started. There may be shortcoming, but right now, B+, A- performance on the first round, and I think as we go to the days ahead, it will get better.
All right. Ambrose Weda, a B+ or an A- for ODM so far, and to be fair, it is the first few days, of course, may have been a bit, disorganized, like yes. Honorable Ken Okoth has mentioned. Yes. But hopefully, going forward, that may change.
I really don't think there will be any major shift. When you see Kisumu coming, there are stakes, and then what brings difficulties people who are more allied to the party leader, or the party leader wants, or the goons around the party leader wants them So this is where the stakes become high. It's not just free and fair. Just look at a situation where President Uhuru was to come out and want somebody, and maybe that somebody is not very popular. This is what brings in a lot of violence, a lot of chaos. But if the leaders themselves detached and accepted that whoever comes in, they work with, then despite the low organization, you would see less fireworks. You get it? But because of interest, my brother now can sit and smell. I'm told he's done a good job. But he can now sit pat because fate has handed him in another chance. Otherwise,
when you say fate, what do you mean? Because I would like to think it's the people that have given him that mandate to represent them.
He has a worthy opponent who may now not be on the ballot. And if the opponent was there, his chances of getting the ticket itself, around the ticket, nothing else, would have been, even if he came with 1,000 people supporting him, chances would have been an Ojamong here, an Otuma there, and then he says, my brother has lost, and then he's told, keep quiet.
So are you suggesting some of the disorganization we have seen is purely because those are candidates who have been given a go-ahead by the party leader?
Yes, some candidates are preferred by the party leader, and they may not necessarily be very popular. So structures are made in their favor so that they win. And sometimes people become mad and violence come in. That is where the problem is. In areas where it says whoever comes we will take, it is usually fairly organized. You will see it all in Jubilee, you see it in ODM, where there are no interests from the top, and there would be generally good organization, and there would be less violence. If you went, for instance, to Kiambu today, suppose the president was to tilt in favor of somebody, the violence would go up. But because they are left to their own schemes, and the party wants it to come out clearly, it is less and there's more organization. My brother here can now sit straight and say, if the other fellow comes, if Owalo comes, I would defeat him. Good. But if Baba was to say, then whatever organization would be very difficult.
Honorable Kenokov.
Let me ask, though, as I try to understand that, for instance, in Busia, people say that the party leader, again, very unfairly, I think he was out of the country most of the time.
He's normally out of the country.
But you know. So the party leader is out of the country. He's being accused of things that are happening that he's not the election. But what I'm trying to understand is, tell me how in Busia, the sitting governor is ODM, Honorable Ojamong, and the main challenger was Honorable Otoma is still the challenger. They're going to have a rerun, as has been announced. He's also someone who served in cabinet in the coalition government under Prime Minister Raila Odinga. So who does he favor there? That's what I'm trying to understand, and what is the cause of the chaos? Does he favor Otoma? Does he favor Ojamong? That's what I want to understand from these people who seem to be in the know to know everything in the party leader's heart and mind. You know,
let me answer this. If
yeah, like in Busia.
Now, let me explain to you. Ojamong is very close to the heart of the party leader. And over the years, let me just explain.
On what grounds?
Otoma was very close until he started doing his legs like this with Ababu Namwamba. When he was leaving, he resigned, and then the Baba said, this one, you can't go with them to the battle. And usually, year in, year out, whenever nominations are around the corner, over the years, I've also been with Baba, around that time, he leaves the country. Just around during nomination, so that after the chaos and the people have done, but he leaves the ground well done. Says, this one I want, Muyu Sitaki, and arrangements are done, and somehow it will be until a day to like 25th, like now that one of Otuma and Ojamong, 25th. And on that 25th, if there are chaos or there are things that do not work well, then we are told now we have to present a candidate, my brother, just hold forth. So being out is not, it is deliberate. But I think this time ODM has done fairly well as compared to the past. They have done fairly well. There's a bit of order. There's a bit of hope. If it was not for the big interests, chances would be that it would be clear. But the big interests are where problems come in.
All right. So you do agree that there's some improvement, at least
Yes.
on ODM, and I know it's going to be. Can only be. We can only wait to see how Jubilee is going to conduct.
Ours is going to be explosive. We are adding prayers every morning.
Explosive in what sense? Because explosive can be very violent.
Explosive here, the contests. The party is very popular. The contest in some areas is very hot. Take, for instance, Kiambu. They all have money. They all have support. They all have everything. We are doing the organization, but adding with prayers. Some places is going to be explosive. And being a day's exercise, we will expect a few chaos here. And there will be chaos. There will be disorganization. Some people will steal. Some people will ban. You expect an amount of chaos. But the level of organization which has been put in by the Secretary General is also very commendable. But after it, we are still holding our breath.
And this is even after the cards, the smart cards that had been launched did not work.
You see, the smart cards was a very good idea, very brilliant idea.
But not thought through?
Well thought through, but you know the heart of man. If you read Genesis 6 and verse 6, God himself says he regretted creating man. It was a good idea to have the cards. But then the heart of man, some people came and they bought them and hoarded them. They are hoarding. So that on the day of voting, they will give their friends, say, go and vote for me. Or they'll have their own private voting center, swiping center, where they are swiping and it goes. This has brought in the new challenges. If people just had accepted it as a good idea and used it in the regional intention, it would have been very good.
All right. Let me come to you, Honorable Ken Okoth, and let's look at slightly at Busia and maybe your thoughts on what happened so far. We have Ken Otoma saying that basically Paul Otoma, sorry, is going to, he's given 48 hours to the party to declare him the winner. In any contest, there must be a winner and a loser. How do you suggest that this should be settled? Because he says going for a rerun is purely a waste of time and money.
Well, I think there's a dispute resolution mechanism within the party. That must be followed. Number two, if you don't agree with the dispute resolution mechanism within the party, then you can go to the second step, which is to take it to the political parties' tribunal, which will be sitting here at Milimani. If you don't think any of those two steps will help you, there's always a chance to take this battle to the High Court. The question is, we are 112 days to the election. Who wants to be spending their resources in courts in Nairobi or in courts at a county headquarters rather than spending their time and resources on the ground, reaching individual voters and asking for support? So the reality of the 112 days, do you want to be appealing for a party ticket or might they jump ship? So I think for somebody like Otoma or anybody else, the risk, and for the parties, so this is why when you say the ODM is shambolic and everything, I think we have a stake and we have a major interest in an ultimate victory in August 8th with a united base of support, with an excited base of support. If we mess, apathy comes in, our supporters split up, then our support base reduces. So I think ODM is going to do the best it can. We're going to see improvements. All the people in charge understand that our victory is at stake if we do not, first of all, consolidate our votes and reach out with an agenda to other people who might not know why they should support us. So if we spend too much time in internal fighting, we'll lose. Someone like Otoma, he has a right to petition within the party. I think he has a right to take it to the dispute tribunal. He has a right to take it even all the way to the High Court. But if that doesn't happen and he doesn't think that's the way, the risk for ODM is that you will see instead people are going to vote apathy or a split. If Otoma does an independent run and Ojamong is the ODM candidate and Jubilee finds opportunistically another viable candidate, this famous kupitia katikati yao thing can happen in Kenya. It happened here in Nairobi. We lost Makadara last time because our Wiper candidate, George Aladwa, no, for ODM candidate, George Aladwa, was in there. He got about 8,000 votes. The Wiper candidate, a wonderful lady candidate, got 6,000 votes, and the Jubilee candidates managed to pass in between them with 2,000 vote difference. So if we are divided, NASA, as we are fielding many people, if we don't reach compromises, we're going to find places where tactically we are losing. As long as the opposition is united, they'll be winning very tactically in some of these races.
I mean,
All right,
just, Michael, maybe if you could just throw in a spanner here, even as the ODM primaries are taking place. There are those, of course, who have already been edged out of the party primaries. Kenyans, again, as history would have it, have really decided to pick not sitting members of parliament, they've decided to pick other people. But IEBC also opened a window for those who lose at the party primaries to run as independent candidates. Let's talk about what shift that would throw in the equation. I mean, is the current political scene really offering a level playing ground for independent candidates, so much so that they could tilt the equation or raise the stakes for those running under the big political parties?
That's a very good question, because at the time there was a law that had been proposed that made it impossible to run as an independent once you participated in a party primary, the law against party hopping. Now what we have is you cannot really party hop, but you can run as an independent. So once you finish the party primaries, it's too late to join another party. So your only chance is to run as an independent. Remember, the ultimate right is for the voter who's sovereign, the Kenyan citizen, to choose. Even if they will choose, be the only person voting for that one candidate, IEBC must facilitate the citizen's right to cast that one vote for that one candidate. And it's democracy. You cannot say we will have administrative hurdles to keep people off the ballot, yet someone somewhere may want to choose that person.
But is it a level playing ground for independent candidates?
Is it a level playing ground for independent? I think a lot is changing in Kenya. In this parliament, you saw one of my really inspiring MPs is called Gatobu Kinoti Gatobu. He's MP for Buri in Meru County. He ran as an independent as a young man. He's done a lot. He's running for governor now. He was an independent. You saw Honorable Musimba from Kibwezi. He ran, he won. He was petitioned in the courts. He went for a by-election. He won again as an independent. So there is space for independents to come in. John Serut from Mount Elgon is an independent. So I think slowly by slowly, once Kenyans think these parties are not doing the right thing, and enough credible candidates rise up, maybe beforehand or during the debacles defecting from existing parties, you may find the vote again being split. So maybe not many independents will win, but the consequence of it would be what is the impact on the people preferred or favored by the parties, opening up the road for another party to win instead. So look at Kiambu, for example. Let's stop talking about ODM all the time. If you don't handle the Kabogo and Waititu challenge properly, if one is seen to be favored and the other runs as an independent, you may find that there's even another third candidate that nobody has been paying attention to now that suddenly is attractive. If there is violence, somebody might think, you know what? Or both of them on the side with the violence. This is our county. Let's give it to the newcomer.
All right. Whether your thoughts on whether that actually is a level playing ground, especially given that for most who would go independent would probably be doing that after they've been bounced off their parties. And a typical case would be Busia.
I think de facto independent, the terrain is not very attractive. Most of the people you have mentioned actually made a decision. I remember discussing with Serut, and he said the people supported both sides. Most of them were his friends and so on and so forth. They told him, we love you, go independent. We love ODM, we love Jubilee, and, but we love you in between. So they told him, go ahead. But the defectors, they don't come lately, people who lose here or are rigged out here and then they go independent, they're going to have it rough. That is exemplified by the fact that you see people fight for the party tickets. If they were that popular, they would have just decided. If you see Musimba, my friend, he just decided, I'm going independent. And people tell you, we don't want you to muddy yourself in this. If you decide to go independent in Kibera, people will just come and say, hey, this one is against Baba, he's fighting Baba, and Baba, and you are out. The same as some areas where parties are very strong. So those who are defecting because they have been shortchanged in their own parties, it would have been a lot easier if they were allowed to move to the next party in the coalition. But moving independent is very difficult. And even the MPs who have been independent, working in parliament becomes difficult because you are a lone ranger. Sometimes parties take positions which may be unreasonable, but they say we are a party. Now you are left hanging you don't know whether to support or oppose.
Or to stay
and that's why we hardly hear of them strongly now when it comes to national issues, because they don't want to get into party politics, and yet they do not have a strong voice.
Okay.
So the terrain is not very
It's
good.
not very level. All right, let's move on to something else, and this is the presidential flag bearer for NASA. And Honorable Ken Okoth, we do know that they're meant to be going, the principals are going for a retreat, and hopefully, they should be giving a word in terms of direction in that area. Should we be expectant? I know that ODM has come out, or rather, NASA has come out and said, look, why is it of interest to Kenyans? But it is of interest to Kenyans. They want to know who would be their prospective president.
But even just before you comment, Mike, I understand it is a botched retreat now because they did announce that it might not take place anymore. So that is still open to speculation. Kenyans might have to wait just a little bit longer.
For me, I would say if Kenyans, the interest of Kenyans in who the NASA candidate will be is so high because Kenyans are fed up with the status quo. They're fed up with the cost of living. They want a change. We were promised that at Jubilee, the cost of maize meal would go from 80 bob unga to 50 bob. It has gone the other way, from 80 to 150. However you explain it, the fact is it was in the campaigns. We were promised our young people, our talent development, would get 5 new stadiums. 5 new stadiums, that number that have been built is 0. We were told it would be an inclusive government that would bring in women, would bring in minority, would bring in youth. It would include the face of Kenya. We have seen in the majority of appointments by Jubilee in the cabinet level and the CS level, nothing like that has happened. You've got 70% of those appointments to 2 ethnic groups. That is a fact. So we've seen a management of the economy where some big companies and the big numbers show Kenyan economy is growing. But when you come down to the reality, small businesses are closing. It's hard to keep a shop open in Nairobi, let alone think about opening a second shop if you only run one shop. Why? So those are the examples of things that I think are showing Kenyans we want to know who is the face of change from NASA, and that's where the hunger is coming out from. It's not pure urge for gossip or something like that, or politics is a sport. It's really to say, give us a lineup and give us an agenda we can rally about. In terms of the timing, 112 days to the main election, I think Jubilee's performance and lack of performance is so clear that it gives space if we get organized and declare a lineup quickly and values upon which we're saying this lineup will deliver, what are the commitments we will deliver on. Then you would see a race that is really strong. So I think for me, magically, personally, 100 days, 99 days, so you've got about 12 or 13 days, you have to run a serious national campaign. If you have 47 counties, if you're even going to do 2 days per county, that gives you about exactly 94 to 95 days to run a serious presidential campaign.
So if NASA was about having this country change, if it was not just about individuals, why would it matter so much who is going to be the presidential candidate? Shouldn't we be looking then at the manifesto that they have, what they have to bring on the table, such that it wouldn't matter whether it is Raila or Kalonzo or Wetangula or Mudavadi, it would matter what they have to bring on the table, and all we need is a CEO to see that through?
Yes and no. The first part of it is you've asked about the issue of the manifesto. I was in Lavington when we unveiled the agreement and the leader's side. And of the 7 points, remember when you asked me and I told you about Jubilee, I'm not talking about personalities. I'm talking about performance on issues and the shortcomings of Jubilee. And I can tell you what are the remedies to those shortcomings. One of the 7 points from NASA was the issue of national debt. Remember when Jubilee came into power, the average national debt per person in Kenya was about 17,000 Kenyan shillings. Today, it's about 63,000 Kenyan shillings. In 4 years, Jubilee has accumulated another 45,000 of debt per person per Kenyan. The question is to justify how much of it is going to SGR, how much of it is corruption, wasted money, and things like that. So NASA has come up with a principle of saying one of those 7 principles is how will we manage question of personal debt. A second principle is the issue of not only national debt, but issue of corruption and conflict of interest. Who will do business with government? who will be forbidden a clear code of ethics and lines. If you choose to be in politics, you're in politics and you have no access to government business. That is a very clear and revolutionary principle to me that I think needs to be unpacked and examples given. And even the leadership of NASA put to task, from individuals like myself at the lower level to the highest level, governors and presidential candidates. How will you extricate yourself? How will you separate yourself from doing business and leading to corruption in government between you as a politician and the opportunities that we see that is happening? So those are the things that are shortcoming Jubilee. It's not that in any one Jubilee leader is worse than any other CORD leader. The question is the principles of governance and how they apply in Chapter 6 of the thing, of our Constitution. When you talk about the issue that I brought to you on national inclusivity, it is a very important issue. And people have been cowed and scared to talk about it. And I say, for me, in Kiswahili, kupinga ukabila si ukabila. There has been serious ukabila in Jubilee government at those highest levels. And let me give you an example. And the research has been done. In the last 4 years, if you are a Luo person, a managing director, a finance director in any state corporation, they have been systematically being removed. And the replacements have come from those two ethnic communities. Those are issues that are of national importance. I would expect the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to be bringing out that ethnic audit of our civil service, including at the management and top levels, and ask, what is it that has caused that exodus of people from one community and the consolidation of professionals from other communities in those positions? So those are the things in which people are disenfranchised. When you look at the government, it can give you a very good portal, it can give you very beautiful speeches and words, but in reality what they're doing is very ugly. And that's where the challenge is, and that is a message that can be packaged with a serious and strong candidate and line up for the 90 days to the election to bring a victory. Fix the economy, fix the common things that work to people. As much as we invest in our infrastructure, invest in our people and our young people as well. Bring a sense of hope and inclusivity, and don't leave women behind. The 2/3 gender rule, the failure to implement it. When Jubilee controlled State House, Jubilee tells us they even control the judiciary and appointed the Chief Justice as a gift to the Kisii people. Jubilee tells us they have a tyranny of number and the speakership of the Senate and the National Assembly, yet they have not passed the 2/3 gender rule. The president has the power to appoint a cabinet. When he has a chance to appoint a cabinet that meets the 2/3 gender rule, what does he do? He takes 2 or 3 seats and gives it to men that should be for women. Those are types of things that are not national unity, and they should be held to account.
All right, I believe we have a caller.
Yes, Mike, we have a caller in line. Richard calling in from Ruiru. Thank you so much for calling in, Richard. What's your comment or question?
My name is Richard. I want to contribute to the debate. And my concern is we are really, as Kenyans, so desperate to have a new government. Okay, let's say a new office.
Right.
Like we have the ODM is the NASA people are really taking time to give us the candidates, and I like the way Mr. Honorable Kenokot is articulating issues. He's running away from the real thing that us people want to hear. He's trying to lecture on the issues of Jubilee instead of telling us exactly the real thing that is eating up in NASA. For instance, Kenokot is telling us that the Kenyans are really concerned. They really need a new leadership, a new face, a new change.
Yes.
But the real thing in NASA is they are failed to agree. I saw in the news today that the governor, Governor Ruto, is getting into the system. So the issue is they really are unable to agree, and they are unable to give us direction. So they should at least agree that they have failed, and if they come in as a new government, they are also going to disagree in several issues, which will not really give us direction. And that is my contribution.
All right, thank you so much. That is Richard calling in from Eldoret, and very pertinent concerns are being raised. Very serious issues being raised. Is NASA really just afraid to tell Kenyans that they just could not agree on a presidential flag bearer? Because, as he says, Kenyans are just desperate now to know who will be the face of change within the opposition.
I think, let me just build on what point he's saying. His points are valid, but I think you need to build on it. Remember, you're building a coalition. The moment you grant one person a certain position and the prerogatives of that position, to win the others and keep them in and to reach, you have to make certain concessions and negotiations and agreements. So you may find if you go with, for instance, the top candidate being for president Israel, whoever the deputy president might negotiate, just as Jubilee did, and say how many of the cabinet positions go to us. If you add in a fourth principle or a fifth principle, bring in an Isaac Ruto and the set of issues, you might find that the issue and concession they're asking for is give us within 100 days or within 200 days a referendum on the percentage of money to be allocated to counties. So there's a number of issues. I don't think it's just about personalities. It's about power sharing and reflecting the face of Kenya, as well as the agenda that we need to move forward to. Because the regular citizen is hurting right now. So I think it's valid to say, it's taking too long. Personally, for myself, I think 2 more weeks is plenty of time. If you think of a 99-day campaign, you just showed some footage on your screen there of ODM Reloaded, old footage from a while ago. KTN is very historical. ODM Reloaded came back and created the energy when people thought ODM was collapsing and Mudavadi had left. We rebuilt. So I think we can have NASA to capture the imagination of the people within time, but I think also each of those agreements we've taken. For instance, if now we say the NASA candidate is Mudavadi, if that was to be agreed, what concessions would have to be given for the other principals to see they're equally in government and their agendas and their representation and their political interests are there too.
And of course, just to add on to that, on the front page of The Nation today, something else throwing a spanner there, that NASA might now be welcoming Governor Ruto with the Chama cha Mashinani as an equal partner. Is that something you can confirm?
I cannot confirm that, but I can tell you in principle, a bigger tent, the better. If you have a united NASA that represents support from all regions of Kenya and the issues and makes pledges and commitments to the people of Kenya from all their regions and their priorities, there has to be a reason why there's a rift in the Rift Valley, and some of the people in the Rift Valley don't feel that this Jubilee government has delivered for them and why they want to seek another alternative. So that's great. Make sure those supporters come in, hold on to the agreements, and within 5 years, deliver to them what their expectations are, or make a serious attempt to deliver. Don't just get into power and then neglect the people who helped you.
All right, let's take one more call. Michael calling in from Mombasa. Good morning, Michael. What's your comment or question?
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning, our panelists out there. Right. I would like to contribute. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Honorable Okoth for his very, very eloquent articulation of the subjects out here. And then another thing, I'd like to just go straight to the NASA coalition. A lot of things have been said about NASA, and of course, most of it, almost 100% of it, is just propaganda. But the biggest question is, why is it that it is the Jubilee supporters, particularly the Jubilee leadership, that is really concerned about the NASA principle? Now, when you see this kind of situation, this explains one fact, that they are jittery, that they are scared, that they know that NASA is on the way to the top office. Another thing is about the portal. Well, I think the portal, and everybody knows, those that are really for this country, they understand that the portal is just a PR exercise. For instance, I can give you facts. I know just about every corner of the coast. For instance, you look at issues like the Taveta Voi Road. This is something that has been there, was launched by the Prime Minister, Honorable Raila Odinga, and was paid for by the African Development Bank. And here, someone comes and tells us that, we brought development for you, and this is the best. I mean, we'll do more for you. But the question is, when we know who paid for it, when it was, when this project was commissioned or when it started, and and then the question is, we do pay taxes. So those are the critical issues that we're looking at, alongside other issues. We've had other issues of probably our leaders being, they keep on saying that our leaders are insulting the presidency. We understand that we hold the presidency, and in particular, Honorable President Uhuru Kenyatta, with high regard, because he is a leader for all of us, whether you are in the opposition or in the government. But then when we understand that our leaders have a responsibility to question the credibility, to question the development agenda of the government, and that's their constitutional right. So it's not a question of saying that probably this is disrespect for the president. Or no, this is a reality that they have a mandate on behalf of the people. So moving forward, we should look at issues objectively. We shouldn't just look at issues simply because we come from this coalition or another. Let's be more objective. Let's be more Kenyan. Those are the critical points that I would like to make. And then one more point that probably did not come up in this debate before I hang up. We've heard about this debate about ethnicity and age, and this one I will go directly to the Prime Minister Raila Odinga. First of all, we should understand that we've had leaders like Adama. The Ghanaian president who just elected the other day. He's actually older than Raila Odinga, and he's tried 4 times to be president of this country, and now he's the president. Of course, we have Trump, and we have lost others. We have Buhari in Nigeria. So the question about age should not come in here. But then the worst is when we've had a repeated almost a narrative. A repeated narrative that has become almost a common song in Kenya. A section of Kenya, they keep on saying that this is ODM. ODM is violent. We saw what was happening in Murang'a and Kajiado during the Jubilee board selection. And then, of course, they talk about ethnicity. Keep on insisting that ODM is an ethnicist. I want to bring one fact to the Kenyans, that we know ODM representation in parliament, even those who are pretending to be Jubilee, because if they were really Jubilee, they should have actually resigned their positions, gone back to the electorate, and we should have sought a new mandate to become Jubilee MPs.
All right,
but presently, as it is, one moment, please. Presently, as it is, that we have a minority of the Luo, because I know ODM is led by a Luo leader, but the truth is that we have a minority in them. The Luos are a minority in ODM. ODM is spread across the nation.
All right, Michael, sorry, we'll cut you short because we need to manage time, Michael. Thank you. I think we've got the point.
All right,
we have another call from Dixon. Dixon, go right ahead. Your question or comment? Dixon? All right, I think we've lost that call. But let me just come back to the panel and maybe let me hear from you, Weda, what you have to say about what Michael had to bring in. The fact that Jubilee, from what he is saying, is not being honest. There are a number of projects that they have come out and said that possibly they've taken care of, but evidently they were not Jubilee projects. They were started during the Prime Minister's tenure, and there were other things that have come up. But I understand Dixon is back, so let's take a call from Dixon. Kindly be as brief as you can, Dixon. Get straight to the point.
Yes. Morning, Michael.
Morning.
Yeah, morning. Mr. Michael, I've got a very pertinent issue that I want to address with Mr. Weda.
Okay.
And Honorable Okot.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, the genesis of our shambolic or shenanigans we are witnessing in our primaries, Let's just take blame and place it to Lucy Ndung'u's office. The thing, what is happening, Michael, is that, let's, for instance, what happened to Honorable Ongoro. By 13th of April, all aspirants' names have been gazetted. Here comes again, her name has been gazetted as an ODM aspirant. How comes again that regional political parties cannot tell her, no, you can't do it in another party, you had been gazetted by IBC on a particular party. She sits there pretty well. She has been there for the last 7 years as just an interim. We have got an MP there. What are you doing? Because this is the genesis of our problem. If somebody has just been acting for 7 years, do you think there are no Kenyans? And what is she doing? Because there are some parties which were just formed 2 months ago. Are they fulfilling the requirements? No. And this lady get salary at the end of the month on a monthly basis with people in her office. because she works for I don't know, for the regime or for the politicians. I think she wants to feel good because she cannot be touched. Because
all right.
Those, too bad. First, I feel a lot of pain. Somebody gets my tax on such kind of a thing.
All right, thank you, Dixon. And let me come back to the panel. And starting with you, Weda, from Michael, then we'll come to Dixon's concerns. And that is the fact that Jubilee, of course, are going around giving their scorecard, which may not be entirely honest. Your comments on that?
Anyway, I don't like complaining, but I think my friend has been allowed to say a litany of very cavalier allegations that you didn't want me to react. I don't know why today. But let me start from the NASA candidate. The four dancers, the fact is they have failed to get a candidate. A lot of dancing, but nothing substantial. Nothing even on the table that if we take government, this is what we are going to do, this is the way we are going to do it different. Nothing. And I said here and I repeat that NASA, without Raila, there is no NASA. The rest are just flower girls escorting Honorable Raila. You better accept that. But if you look at what they are putting on the table, mainly propaganda. You cannot get to power by not acknowledging some very good fundamental things that your opponent has done. Even if there are things that they have not done well, you say, here, they've done well. If we have the biggest opponent of the railway, it has been Honorable Raila Odinga, NASA, ODM. They didn't want it, there was something wrong with it. But when they realized that the president and his team was serious about bringing it, he came on, turned around and said, I am the one who started this. This country cannot grow without borrowing. Singapore at one time borrowed 150% times their GDP to grow. We must borrow. And therefore, creating the debt as some something that they're using to scare Kenyans. We have borrowed too much. We must borrow to do our infrastructure. We must borrow to invest in industry. We must borrow to improve. And this borrowing, do not use it as a weapon. It is good. Occasionally, a little money. You know where billions, trillions of shillings are passing? It's like cooking meat. Occasionally, somebody dips his hand and takes a piece. That is what corruption is. And I think government has put in place various mechanisms to ensure that the corrupt hands are minimized. But let us try to get into government through saying, look, this has been done well, we'd like it to be improved. As we stand today, 90 days to elections, I don't know if I was to go for NASA. What are they for? Dancing? Propaganda? Nothing. And therefore, they are not fit to lead anybody if they cannot lead themselves, to get just a simple leader. We as Jubilee would like to know the candidate. And I've said the reason why. We want to know the way we tackle Raila candidates is different from the way we tackle a rectangular candidate. So bring that fellow quickly so that we organize our troops, defeat the fellow quickly, and get to work. Kenya needs to improve. In the next 20 years, Kenya needs to have moved to the next level.
All right, Ambrose, just to take you on what you're talking about borrowing, the issue may not necessarily be borrowing per se. It's what that money does once it has been borrowed. Is it going to the use that it has been borrowed for?
The bulk of the money that has been borrowed, let's be specific. The money that has been borrowed to go into railway, it is there. The railway is coming, is supposed to move to Naivasha and then to move to Kisumu, Busia, and Malaba. Money that has been borrowed to do roads, it is there. The roads are being built, and we are seeing. It is only that when it is good, it was during the Grand Coalition. When it is bad, it is the Uhuru one. That kind of dishonesty cannot run a country. We are seeing the Outer Ring Road is being done. The one going to the Ngong Road, the one Kilimani, is being done. But when they pass there and they say, this is very good, they say, oh, this was the Grand Coalition. Then we can as well say that the ones that were done during Kibaki's time were done during Moi's time, because that argument is cheap. You can plan, but you cannot put, if you don't have money, it cannot work. This government has chosen to go the big way. That's why you see big things. And that's why the other people are scared. They think, oh, this is too big to be true. We are going to go down in debt. We are not going to go down in debt. Even the kind of money that we are borrowing and the projects they are going for, they are for now and the next 30, 40, 50 years. Your coalition government concentrated on small things of power. Which protocol is, who is senior to who? Is Raila senior to Kalonzo? Is Kalonzo senior to Raila? Now, as the president and the deputy president has chosen, we are going to work for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Please tell us your agenda even for the next 5 years, other than amending the constitution to give yourself
right.
premiership.
Okay.
What is there?
All right, let me hear from Kenneth. Maybe you'd like to give an answer to Weda.
I think that is all good. He's a good defender of Jubilee on many things, but the facts are facts. If Jubilee says they have built 7,000 kilometers of roads, 7,000 kilometers of road is from here to Dubai and back, or from here to Rome. We would see them. We would not need it displayed on our website. We would see it. The Grand Coalition government built us a thicker highway from here to Thika, 50 kilometers. We can see it. These roads they have built, we will not discount. But please do not tell us 200, 500, 400 kilometers or even less than 1,000 kilometers is 7,000. That will never wash. Number two is the issue of what will, he talks about the big things. And this is a fundamental philosophical debate. Yes, we need infrastructure, but of which kind? If really the big thing was to give us a railway, we could have had the merits and the demerits, and there were clear agreements of telling us which decisions to go with, including do you upgrade the existing railway line or do you build a new standard gauge railway? Once you make a decision in your executive prerogative and you have the instruments of power, go ahead and make that decision. But under no condition should you do it at 3 times the cost, saddling us with major, major debt. You could do it at the right cost. I'll give you an example of President Magufuli in Tanzania. He came in and found a botched up, cooked up, exaggerated tender by the Chinese to do a standard gauge railway from Dar es Salaam to Morogoro. He renegotiated, cancelled that contract, renegotiated with the government of Turkey, and they're building it at a fraction of that cost. So we know what railways cost in Africa, and we have to ask, why is it that the railway in Kenya costs that much more? Nobody is opposed to a railway line. We had a debate, the time for that debate is over, whether to upgrade the old railway or to build a new one. Now we're building. But fundamentally, when you also make mistakes, accept criticism. It's not insult, it's not personal. Let me ask you, the purpose and the goal and the vision of the standard gauge railway was to be a modern line that goes all the way to Kampala on to Kigali. When we have mismanaged our international relations, don't say Jubilee has been 100% perfect. We are here as Kenyan stakeholders looking at our government, and where it fails, we must tell it, please do better. What is it that has happened in our relationships with Uganda and Kigali that now the standard gauge railway for Kampala-Kigali is going around Lake Victoria, the southern route, to the port of Tanga, and is not going to go to our port, which means the cost of the SGR we are building will be fully borne by Kenyans for the next 50 years. Yes, our railway is nice, but it would have been much nicer if that railway line, we were sharing the costs, and it was going all the way to Kigali and on with a link to Bujumbura. But if it's only going to be in our country right now, which is what it seems, because the other partners have shunned us in the region, we've mismanaged our diplomacy, and it's going now, they have an alternative, that's going to affect us. Think about the northern countries, the partners for Kenya. What is it that we're going to do with Juba? How are we going to get the infrastructure open to boost trade and jobs for our people? Remember, our people want jobs, even now. And growing the economy in an inclusive way is an imperative that is a challenge. Jubilee promised 1 million jobs a year. We haven't got to a fraction of that. Those are legitimate issues to discuss in a campaign.
All right, time is against us, and I wanted closing comments.
Thank you, brother, that for the first time.
But we don't have time.
So my MP has agreed the railway is good, and we should do it. There are few problems here and there. Some of them will be done. Some of them areas where we made mistakes will be corrected. But you have not put in a case where
all right.
should be
Thank you very much, Ambrose Weda, a lawyer, and Honorable Ken Okoth, Member of Parliament for Kibra. Michelle, closing comments and possibly just 1 or 2 comments.
Well, Michael, it's just a recap of our question of the day. We're asking, do you believe the remaining round of party primaries will be less acrimonious? Well, some of your results are in. Hazard Amos saying, what has transpired so far as these primaries are concerned is what I would anticipate. Again, I'm still expecting it to be more acrimonious. And Munene Mwiti here says, I don't believe so, but let the party disciplinary committee tighten their disciplinary actions. Do keep your thoughts and comments coming in. The question is whether you believe the remaining round of party primaries will be less acrimonious. But that is why we take a break on this end of Morning Express. Coming up next is Life and Style for those on KTN Home. But remember, we have news updates right here on KTN News. And later on, Robin Tosken will be joining us with Sports Chat.